Freedom is my birthright. Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Relive history with our members, Cmdr Nirmal Mukherjee, Cmdr Subrata Bose, Colonel Dipesh Lahiri and Ms. Rita Banerjee, who were young children or teenagers way back in 1947. They shared their memories of the day India won her independence, 15th August 1947.
I was just 12 years old when India became independent. Those were times of great misery for both the people of Bengal and Punjab. I will only talk about Bengal because that is what I witnessed firsthand. The perspectives of an adult and a child differ to a great extent, and my understanding of independence at that time was based purely on my first-hand experience of partition and immediate period thereafter. I was born in 1935 in the district of Khulna of East Bengal and spent my primary schooling years in the district of Bogra. United Bengal in the pre-partition days was a sleepy, peaceful society where we woke up to the melodious sound of baul singing and strumming their ektaras. Throughout the day, there are peaceful and soothing kirtan and bhajans alongside calls of our ajan. One cannot imagine the peace and bonhomie that prevailed in society. All this was shattered close to independence from early mid-40s. As the rumors of independence and partition grew stronger, immigration began to happen. Bengali Hindu families started moving to the safety of West Bengal, Bihar, UP and Orissa. And Muslims from UP, Bihar started to come into East Bengal in large numbers. Violence of unimaginable proportion and intensity took place in an ever-increasing spiral. Bengal was forever partitioned on religious lines and never go back to those good old days. By April 1947, my father sent me and few of my siblings across to Bihar to my own place at Katiyar for safety and schooling. The biggest change that I felt immediately pre and post-independence was one of safety in India, which was no longer available for minorities in East Pakistan. On 12 August 1947, on instruction from my father, accompanied by two trusted Bihari family retainers, I returned to Bogra in East Pakistan to fetch my father, to fetch my mother and sister to the safety of India. My father would remain at Bogra to try and sell or barter our property as best as he could. So, on the night of 14-15 August 1947, I was in Bogra in East Pakistan. My most enduring memories of around that independence, that was the journey from East Pakistan to India. On 15th August, the Ansar Bahini and Bihari immigrants forced every Hindu household in East Pakistan to hoist the Pakistani flag on their houses on pain of death. We started our return journey on 16th August 1947 by train to India, along with thousands of others. I was chained to the door handle and held tight by our family retainers for safety. It was a horrific return journey with sights of blood, murder, loot and rape all around. In a way, it was a good thing that we were returning empty-handed. That probably saved us from the Ansar Bahini thugs who periodically entered the trains and caravans and unleashed atrocities. The most popular and memorable slogan was that of Netaji Subhash. It was mainly relayed in Hindi to the effect, "तुम मुझे अपना खून दो, मैं तुम्हें आज़ादी दिलाऊंगा." I could not unfortunately hear Pandit Nehru's famous speech at the stroke of midnight of 14-15 August 1947, as it was not allowed to be broadcast in East Pakistan, where I had gone for 2 days to bring back my mother and sister. The word freedom has different meanings at different stages at one's life. As a 12-year-old, for me, freedom was all about being able to do what I wanted when I wanted, without any restrictions or interference. My experiences during the 3 border crossings I undertook around independence made me grow up quickly. So now freedom also meant ability to sacrifice and share for the greater good of the community at large. Independence was terrible for academic and career fronts for all youth of that time. For me, higher education became a bleak prospect and quite a huge mountain to climb. In those days, the Anglo-Indian Railway employees were our heroes, and we dreamed to have a ride in the train. Once I saw a man in white dress at Katia railway station and assumed he was a railway guard and asked him about his profession. He informed me that he was a naval officer on his way to rejoining duty. I did not understand what the Navy was, having never seen the sea or ships. Some of the worldly wise adults in our neighborhood enlightened me and introduced me to the term water military. The sound of this profession was very exciting and adventurous. I was immediately attracted to it. Further inquiries led my friends and I to the local recruiting office, where we were duly informed that not only were all of us underage, but also not tough enough to join the Navy. This bit of information further cemented our resolve, and about 10 of us managed to convince the recruiting officer to issue the necessary form to us. We thereafter filled the forms and got the consent signed by our parents. The next step was written medical examination, followed by interview at the district headquarters of the Ganga Vihar. Out of the 10 friends who went through the process, I was the only one fortunate enough to be selected. I was told to report to the training establishment at Visakhapatnam, and the rest, as they say, is history. Thus, my naval career started from 8 November 1951 at the right age of 16 years, 4 months and 23 days. I joined the Indian Navy in 1951. And during my naval career, India was engaged in 3 wars, namely 1962, 1965 and 1971 respectively. Also, I took active part in the liberation of Goa in 1961. The Indochina War of 1962 was mostly a land battle. Those days, I was posted on a naval oil tanker, and we were tasked with transporting oil and petroleum products to the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. There were many reported sightings of submarines in that area. In hindsight, they may have been transiting submarines of the superpowers of that time. But being at work, we were also on high alert at sea and hardly got to sleep. During the Indo-Pak War of 1965, I was posted at Cochin in the Southern Naval Command and our greatest vigil was against infiltration and sabotage by the enemy. There was a blast reported by some fishermen from outside the harbour, and thereafter the entire coastal area would go into blackout post-sunset as a precautionary measure. The 1971 Indo-Pak War was the biggest war fought by India to date. It is the only war that we have fought on 2 fronts, that is the Western and Eastern fronts, with equal intensity. I was posted at Visakhapatnam, the headquarters of Eastern Naval Command, as the Command Intelligence Officer. It was an intense atmosphere, having part of the Indian fleet, including the aircraft carrier INS Vikrant, had been shifted to the Eastern Command for operations at Bangladesh. This period saw a lot of exciting and tense incidences like the destruction of PNS Ghazi just outside Visakhapatnam Harbour, bombing of Chittagong Harbour by naval aircraft from Vikrant, capture of merchant vessels carrying contraband and arms for Pakistan troops, training of Mukti Bahini and much more. For my part, I was responsible for sifting through all information we received along the entire eastern coast, filtering these and advising the command accordingly to help take decision during operation. I also crossed over to East Pakistan on 2 occasions to gather information from sources provided by old family retainers with whom I had made contact. These were journeys fraught with high level of danger, as even our own forces were not aware of my movements, and I went over wearing lungi and vest in the local tradition. The information I received helped us crack many a sleeper cell and prevent the destruction of vital infrastructure and installation in and around Visakhapatnam. At the end of the war, I was awarded the Visit Seva Medal in recognition of my services. Thank you.
Did you know that the share of the Indian population over the age of 60 is projected to increase from 8% in 2015 to 19% in 2050? In fact, by the end of the century, it will go up to nearly 34% of the total population in the country. This is an inevitable and irreversible demographic reality, as improvements in health and medical care have led to increased longevity. The old age dependency in the population is gradually but consistently increasing, as there is a distinct demographic transition to increased lifespan and smaller families. Add to this the elderly's preference for aging in place. Migration of children due to professional requirements often sees the elderly living alone or only with the spouse. Through extensive research and personal interaction, we too found that the elder's own home is the strongest bond between them and their immediate socio-physical environment. However, the special needs of the elderly need to be addressed. Support Elders brings to the elderly a sustainable ecosystem by providing comprehensive support in the comfort of their own homes.
Daily evening calls, they are the ones. Any day I don't get a call from anybody. At least in the evening I do get the call from support elders. Somebody asks me, are you well? Have you eaten? Have you taken your medicines? So I feel that there is somebody watching over me.
We at Support Elders work towards enhancing the quality of life of elders. With our well-entrenched technology, team of ex-servicemen and state-of-the-art alarm centers, we provide 24/7 medical emergency services and 360-degree comprehensive at-home support to elders.
There was a crisis with my husband. He had to be admitted into hospital. So I just dialed the number, and within 20 minutes, the gentleman who answered the phone, he said, "Do you need an ambulance?" I said, "Yes." So he arranged an ambulance. He brought it. Within 20 minutes, he was here with the ambulance, and we were able to shift him to, to the hospital or whatever needed to be done. And then, so that was really very good. I was very thankful for that.
It's very peaceful to the mind. I really am always happy because I'm with you. I'm with Support Elders. That gives me a lot of peace in my mind.
We provide sophisticated, customized, technology-enabled solutions which include digital tracking and remote health monitoring, as well as regularly updating our members' kin or care sponsors.
The Support Elders Alarm Center team members spread across multiple cities are on high alert 24/7, as we are the first who receive information about members' medical emergencies. As soon as the alert button is pressed or we receive a call, we call them back to understand the whole situation, and simultaneously we track our caregiver nearest to the member's location.
Then, the alarm center team arranges for an ambulance if required, finds out the availability of beds in the member's preferred hospital, coordinates with all of them, and also updates the member's kin.
In case of emergency, I know someone is waiting for my call. So that feeling is very good.
All the ladies who stay alone, even not alone with husbands even, they should take this support elders membership and they will definitely have better time as I am having.
नमस्कार, मेरा नाम प्रदीप कुमार सिंह है। मैं भारतीय सेना में 18 साल नौकरी करके रिटायर्ड हुआ। वहाँ से नौकरी छोड़ने के बाद मैंने सपोर्ट एल्डर ज्वाइन किया। हमारा काम यहाँ पे सपोर्ट एल्डर में है कि हमारे जो सीनियर सिटीजन्स हैं, जो हमारे एल्डर्स हैं, उन्हें सपोर्ट देना, मेडिकल इमरजेंसी में काम देना।
We could rely on him. We could rely on the support elders. That helped us a lot in my husband's getting the surgery done. He came. He took him at about 7 o'clock, and it took about the whole day getting the dates, then the admission, taking him. Mr. Sinha from the support elders, he made sure that he never faced any inconvenience, and for that entire duration. That was a big help for us.
Social interaction and being connected is essential for mental well-being and cognitive fitness. So, we facilitate creative, cultural and educational pursuits to encourage our members to chase their cherished dreams, discover new passions, or just socialize and interact with others. These promote positive aging and help to keep dementia and loneliness and even depression at bay.
My parents are members of your extended family since last year. In the couple of instances where my father had to be hospitalized, we received extremely professional, prompt and very touching services from your team, and we are very grateful for that.
My name is Amit Kumar Datta. I joined support elders after completion of 16 years of service in Indian Army. The dedication and disciplined life of Indian Army helped me a lot to serve our elderly members. My enthusiasm, my spirit helped me a lot in several cases where I have to reach on time and save them.
I did not visit bank, ECHS, post office, even the mall. I never went out of the house. I stayed at home and they brought everything for me.
During this pandemic, when we are asked not to go out, and at the same time we need many things like ration, etc. So then she suggested that why don't you ask our support elders staff. I said normally they are not supposed to do these things, they are supposed to do medical things, but how can I ask them to buy groceries and all? But when I approached them, it was complied with, and we are practically very cozy with that arrangement, that whenever we required something, we said beforehand that this is the thing, tomorrow we may require. Even like milk, we got it. My son's in-laws are in Hyderabad. They have made them members from the USA itself.
We provide professional care with empathy and compassion. Serving elders since 2014, Support Elders is a trustworthy and reliable platform with a proven track record of consistent delivery and thoughtful service.
On 15th August 1947, when India gained independence, I was an 11-and-a-half-year-old 6th standard student living in Delhi. I was aware that India was ruled by the British and was a colony of Great Britain, and that the Governor General of India ruled on behalf of the King of Great Britain. The Indians had no say in the ruling of their country and were considered as second-class citizens. I was also aware that there was a long struggle for independence. The names of Mahatma Gandhi, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose were familiar to me. I was also aware that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru would become the first Prime Minister when India gained independence, and that he would also hoist the national tricolour flag on the Red Fort on the night of 14th-15th August 1947. Although independence was granted, the Indian subcontinent was allowed by the British to be divided into two nations, India and Pakistan. At the time of independence, I was staying in a house in the Kashmiri Gate area of Delhi, and this was not very far from Red Fort, just about 2 kilometers as the crow flies. Everybody was very excited about 15th August, the hoisting of the flag on the Red Fort. I was very keen to be there to observe this event. However, because of my young age, I was not allowed to go there at that time of the night. I recollect that I went up with my mother to the roof of our house and looked towards Red Fort, and I could see a glare of light in that direction, which looked almost like daylight. I could also hear the crowds sloganeering from the roof of our house. I realized it was midnight of 15th August 1947, when there was a thunderous roar which rolled over my head, and the sky over Red Fort was illuminated by thousands and thousands of fireworks. I realized that India had now thrown off the yoke of slavery and was now a free country and master of its own destiny. Early on the morning of 15th August 1947, I rushed to the Red Fort to see the tricolor fluttering over it and felt very proud. I also remember flag hoisting ceremony in our locality where all the people who had congregated sang the national anthem Vande Mataram and Jana Gana Mana, along with and there was lots of, and everybody was full of joy and happiness. However, post-independence was not a very happy period for me. Due to the slaughter of Hindus and Sikhs in West Punjab, thousands of refugees started pouring into Delhi. And retaliatory riots broke out in Delhi. It was a terrifying period for all concerned. Another event which saddened me very much was the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi on 30th January 1950. The assassination of Mahatma Gandhi on 30th January 1948 was another traumatic event for me. I was shocked and dumbstruck when I heard this news. The assassination of Mahatma Gandhi on 30th January 1948 was another traumatic event for me. I was shocked and dumbstruck when I heard this news. Pandit Nehru's speech from the Red Fort after hoisting the flag was widely reported in the next day's newspapers. And I remember reading it, but I do not remember its contents at this period of time. Pandit Nehru's speech after the hoisting of the tricolor on the Red Fort was widely reported in all the newspapers on the morning of 15th August 1947. I do remember reading the speech, but at this stage I do not remember the contents.
I am Colonel Dipesh Lahiri. I am a member of Support Elders and I served in the Indian Army. I was in Maratha Regiment. I'd like to share my memory of 1947 with you. 74 years have passed since the day India got her independence. and India flew the tricolour for the first time after the Union Jack was brought down for the last time. I was but a child and cannot remember all the detailed impressions of those days. But some incidents, some images of these days are still fresh in my mind. The 1940 decade was a disturbed period, not only for India, but for the whole world. Second World War, the Axis power was making progress everywhere. The Japanese had captured Burma and was threatening India. My father, who was a medical officer in the army, was moved to Middle East and subsequently to Europe and away from home for 5 years. We always missed his presence, particularly when we saw other children with their fathers, playing with them and indulging them. My mother had to look after us through this difficult period. In those days, we never realized the load she was facing, bringing up 2 children all by herself. Our grandfather's house was in a place called Rangpur in North Bengal. He was a renowned doctor and also the district president of Congress Party. In 1942, Quit India movement started. In those days, I was young and did not understand fully what was happening. The British authorities tried to stifle the movement with an iron hand. We could see processions that were stopped by police. Young men were arrested. One of my uncles was sent to jail and he appeared for his MA examination from jail. 2 other uncles were home interned. Home interned meant that they were not allowed to get out of the house, and if they had to go out for something, they had to inform the police. In those days we were children, didn't very well understand what was happening, but knew that we were asking for freedom from the British. Some of the political leaders were agitating, and we heard also about Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose speaking from Japan. In 1945, the war ended and my father returned home. He took release in 47. In 45, he was posted in Shillong and we all moved there. In 1946, we joined school. We didn't hear much about political activities in the school. I was in St. Edmund's College in Shillong. We heard about the communal riots that had broken out in many parts of India, particularly in Punjab and in Bengal. In 1947, my parents moved to Calcutta after my father took release from the army. I was sent to the hostel in my school. We didn't hear much about political activities in the school during that period. During July of that year, we were told that India was to get independence in August. It was supposed to be held on 15th August 1947. We were all also told that part of Punjab and Bengal would form part of Pakistan. In those days, I didn't very well understand what that actually meant. We were happy to know that 15th August would be a holiday for the school. Life went on as usual. One thing that changed, the school authorities took us by surprise. Earlier, we all had to attend morning prayers in the school chapel as the first thing in the morning. This was changed from 15th August. had to attend the morning chapel. All the others, Protestants, Jews, Hindus and Muslim boys would attend private study during that period. Gradually the term came to an end. We were to return home with the school train party. Since my mother was staying in Rangpur, I was told my parents to get off in Rangpur. Accordingly, I wrote a letter to my mother requesting her to send someone to the station to take me home after I get down. On the day of departure, we were very happy that we were going home. It was early morning when we reached Rangpur. In those days, trains from Assam still followed the old train route going through East Pakistan. My schoolmates helped me to get down from the train. It was a cold winter morning. As I stood alone on the platform, railway platform, there was no one in sight. No one had come to receive me. Much later, I came to know that the postal services had been disrupted between the two newly independent nations, and no one had received my letters. The platform was virtually deserted. I knew I had to manage on my own and was looking out for a porter. I looked and was stunned to see the Pakistani flag fluttering on top of the school station building. It was a shock. I had never forgotten that feeling of fear and despair till today. That was the first time I realized that my country was no more my own and I was in a foreign land. I found a porter and managed to reach outside. There were a few horse carriages outside. Luckily, I saw Kanumia's carriage also outside. He was a coachman who was employed by our family and we knew him very well. I managed to reach home. In January, we reached Calcutta. It was then I realized what had happened to the partition. One could see Bengali refugees everywhere. They were trying to settle down in India and find a livelihood. They were struggling to survive. It was a disturbed period. Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated and there was tension. Pakistan had launched an attack in Jammu and Kashmir in October 1947. The Indian army countered their evil design and managed to throw them back. The army went through gradual changes after the independence. When we were undergoing training in academy in 1955, Hindi words of command were introduced. RSM Regimental Sergeant Major Goodall, who was on deputation from the British Army, suddenly found himself at a loss. He would remain silent and only use his pay stick. He made no comments on the new words of command. Initially, we also thought that the Hindi words of command were not as powerful as the English counterparts, and we were slightly skeptic. But gradually we realized that the Hindi words of command were very powerful and very effective. I at that time decided to join the army, but I was too young. Later on, I tried and joined the Indian Army. I wouldn't recall all my experiences in the army, but one incident I remember very well, which was a lesson I learned. In 1959, we were moved to Nagaland for counter-insurgency operation. We moved from Delhi and we did not have sufficient time to train for our operations in Nagaland. There were very few senior officers and we were given command much beyond. We were told to command 2 companies at one stage. As we were going in the transit camp, we were told that suddenly we had to go for operations. I had no knowledge about operations, and so the only knowledge I had was from the films, movies that I saw about Burma war. Naturally, I told my troops to camouflage themselves, get wheats and leaves all over their body, and was preparing for this operation. The second in command, Major Bal Gangadhar, turned up and looked at us and said, "What are you doing? Remove all these things." So we did not know what was happening. We removed. Anyway, he briefed us and we moved up for the operation with great josh. Whole night we were on the vigil. Next morning we got up, there was quiet everywhere, and I asked for breakfast. My Subedar told me, "Where is breakfast? We haven't got any ration." I realized I did not know that I had to carry ration. It never struck me. And we had to be out for 3 days. Luckily, we were next to an aula forest. There were wild aula trees. And for 3 days, we lived on aulas. I'll never forget that experience. After that, whenever I moved out for any operation, I always carried ration. So that is the only experience I'd like to share with you. Thank you so much.
I start a little earlier from the Second World War. The recollections that I have, very faint though, I remember the blackouts, the sirens, and that famous Bengali chhora rhyme. Sare gama padhani, bom pheleche japani, bomer bhitor keute sha, British bole bapre bap. Whoever knew it was such a political nuance, it had so much political nuance. I came to know much later on. That all I remember. And then again, the day of our independence, I have some recollections. That is, the elders were so excited and they were overwhelmed. I just can't express that because we couldn't transmit that overwhelming, romantic, exciting feeling to our next generation. What I felt and what my elders felt, that was unique. And especially I come from a family, my paternal side, a family of freedom fighters. My younger uncle was released from Alipur Central Jail only to go back home in Comilla and die. He was released only on that stage with galloping TB. And so many such freedom fighters everyone knows. What I remember, we didn't go to bed. We usually went to bed by 10 o'clock. Finished our dinner by 9:30 sharp and then went to bed by 10 o'clock. That day, that 15th August 1947, we did not go to bed. Actually, my parents didn't go to bed, my grandma didn't go to bed, so I also didn't go to bed. With my brother, we all stayed awake. Was not knowing really what is happening. We had a Philips radio, and it seemed that my elders wanted to put their heads inside the radio. We didn't have phones and no other way of communication but the radio. That was the only mass media at that time. This I remember very much. Then it was announced by Nehru, that's all. That all I don't remember. That's known to everyone. But it was great excitement. That I remember. And late in the morning, we all decked up our house with festoons and all. And I was staying in Srirampur. There I didn't see. But in Kolkata, I believe there were Prabhat fairies and all. I didn't see that. I don't remember that. But I came to know of that later on. And then there was that Christian college in Srirampur. The professors were very known to my parents, so they arranged a tableau of this Bharat Mata becoming free from bondage. Then my mother was made that Bharat Mata with chains round her hand and that wearing tattered and torn sari and that. And when she became free, she wore a very nice, beautiful sari with that paddy, with paddy in hand and lotus in hand and all that. I was so excited. I was sitting beside my grandma. I just shouted. I couldn't believe my eyes. My mother getting up on the stage and so decked up. Then my mother said, "You're not going to shout." I said, "Oh my God, Ma is there." I just didn't believe. I couldn't believe. That much only I can remember. But after that, of course, that horrible riots. I've got some recollection of riots also. When our house was beside Ganges, so dead bodies used to come and get stuck in the jetty, and people were very tense. This I remember. Thereafter, we started singing many patriotic songs written by our poets, that Dhono Dhanno Pushpa Bhara, Sonar Bangla, and so many others, even in Hindi, all patriotic songs. We all, even the children, we all knew the patriotic songs. It has become quite a vogue to sing the patriotic songs. We never sang any other song, only patriotic songs. And that continued, that euphoria continued for some time, living in a free nation, not being ruled by foreigners. That feeling, that exclusive feeling, it's very hard to describe unless you experience it yourself. I was discarding old books to make room for new arrivals, and I came across a newspaper, yellow with age, dated 15th August, Friday 1947, The Statesman. I felt ecstatic about my new discovery. Whoever knew my parents have handed me down such an invaluable thing? My thoughts wandered through the memory lane, and the excitement, mirth, and the great feeling of freedom was almost palpable to me. I could not resist sharing this unique feeling with
Thank you ever so much for spending your time with us. We hope you have enjoyed watching the program. Before we say bye-bye, we have a little request. Please spend a second to click on the subscribe button. No, this is not a financial subscription. It only means that you have seen and liked the program and subscribing to this channel so that you can watch many more such programs that we intend to bring to you. Thank you once again.